You know that init method you type every single time you create a class? You've probably done it 100 times, but do you actually know what's happening behind the scenes? By the end of this video, you'll understand Python constructors so clearly, you'll never be confused about self, init, or why your objects always need starting values. And we are going to do it by building a digital pizza oven. So imagine you're coding a food delivery app and a customer wants to order a pizza. Every single pizza needs a size, a crust type, and a list of toppings. If you had to manually type out those details every time someone placed an order, your code would become a disorganized mess. Python automates this using something called a constructor. Think of a Python class as the blueprint. It defines what a pizza is and what ingredients it can have. The object is the actual pizza that gets baked and delivered to your door. And the constructor is the chef who jumps into action the exact millisecond an order comes in. It initializes the specific size, crust, and toppings for that exact pizza so it's ready immediately. Now let's get into the code and see how this actually works. First, the master blueprint for our pizza. I'm going to create a class called pizza. Now I'll define the constructor. Def init. This is Python's built-in constructor, also called a dunder method because of those double underscores. You never have to call this function manually. Python runs it automatically the moment a new pizza is born. Self. Think of it as the specific pizza currently on the counter. It tells Python, put this specific size and this specific crust into this exact box. And self.toppings. Notice we didn't pass any argument here. Every pizza starts with plain cheese, so we initialize it with an empty list by default using the constructor. This is how you give your objects sensible starting values. Now let me define a couple of methods so our pizza can actually do things. I am adding two methods inside the class, add topping and get pizza details. Add topping takes a topping as input and appends it to our toppings list. Now you can customize your pizza. And get pizza data detail returns a nicely formatted string showing the size, crust type, and the full list of toppings for that specific pizza. Alright, now the fun part. Let's actually order some pizzas and see the constructor do its magic. I'm going to create three different pizza objects. First, a large thin crust pizza. The moment I create pizza 1, Python automatically calls init with size large and crust thin crust. I didn't write any separate initialization code. The constructor handled it all behind the scenes. Then let me add a couple toppings and print the pizza details. You can see it worked perfectly. The constructor set the size and crust automatically, and our add topping method added pepperoni and mushrooms. Now here's where it gets interesting. Let me create two more pizzas to show you that every object gets its own independent set of attributes. I'll create a medium stuffed crust pizza. Notice the constructor immediately sets the size to medium and crust to stuffed crust. Add some different toppings, print it out, and you can see each pizza is completely separate from the others. Then one more, a small pan pizza. Again the constructor fires instantly, setting size to small and crust to pan. These three pizzas all came from the same class blueprint, but each has its own unique state because the constructor initializes every object individually. So what happens if you don't define a constructor? Python actually provides a default one. If I create a class without init, Python still lets me create objects, but they won't have any attributes set up automatically. You'd have to add them manually after creating the object. That's fine for simple cases, but the moment you need every object to start with specific data, you write your own constructor. Let me quickly summarize everything we covered. The constructor is always named init. It's a dunder method that Python calls automatically the moment you create a new object. It's how you give your objects their starting attributes so they are ready to use immediately. And every object gets its own independent copy of those attributes. That's constructors in Python. Practice these concepts, create your own classes, play with different starting values, and I guarantee you'll build a solid foundation for everything else in object-oriented programming. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.